Chicago?
Yes.
Okay. When did you become employed as a physician with medical specialists?
In 2005, July.
And from July of 2005 until June of this year, were you employed with medical specialists?
Yes.
And you practiced in your specialty of allergy and immunology that entire time?
Correct.
At the time you first became employed with medical specialists, did it have a substantial allergy and immunology practice?
It had none.
And so is it fair to say that from 2005 to 2012 you helped to build a practice in allergy and immunology?
I was the sole allergist.
What did you do to build that allergy and immunology practice?
I did many things.
Can you please tell the court what they are?
Initially, I brought my expertise and training as a board-certified allergy and asthma and immunology specialist. Once I got here, I helped set up the clinic from scratch. There were no allergy protocols. There were no allergy nurses. There was nothing. So at that time, we helped establish all those protocols and started to promote myself to the community regarding allergy and immunology services.
And you had assistance, obviously, from your employer in doing that?
Yes, I did.
Can you give me a list of all of the locations at which you practiced since you've been employed with medical specialists in PC?
My primary office was in Munster, 741 45th Street, and half a day a week I was in Maryville.
And where is that office located?
80th Place Street.
You can't give me an exact address now?
I can't recall.
Okay. While you were employed with medical specialists, did you have privileges at any hospitals?
I was on staff at Community Hospital, St. Margaret's North, and St. Margaret's South.
Are you still on the medical staff of any hospitals?
Yes, I am.
Which ones?
Community Hospital, St. Margaret's North, and St. Margaret's South.
Have you been asked by, by the way, St. Margaret's North and South, are those both Franciscan Alliance hospitals?
They're both Franciscan Alliance hospitals.
Have you been asked by the Franciscan Alliance hospitals to resign your hospital privileges at those hospitals?
No.
And you're still on the medical staff at Community as well?
Yes.
Tell the court why it's important for you to remain on the medical staff at any hospital.
Generally, you do need privileges to contract with insurance companies. You also need privileges in case one of your sick patients ends up getting unstable and needs hospitalization. You also need privileges if you want to send your patients for certain services, outpatient as well, that you need to follow.
during your employment, during your employment with Medical Specialist Inc. PC, did you learn at some point that it was planned or there was a deal, in the works, for Franciscan to buy the assets of the Medical Specialist?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me how you first learned of that.
Sometime in September of 2012, there was rumors flowing around the company that the company was going to be bought. During that time, we had a couple of town hall meetings where Dr. Stemmer talked about the upcoming purchase.
Okay. And at those town hall meetings were physicians who were also employed by Medical Specialists invited to attend to hear about the plans for the deal?
Yes.
Okay. And during any of those town hall meetings, was it discussed that Medical Specialists would remain in existence after the deal?
No.
Okay. Was it ever discussed in any of those meetings that some physicians with Medical Specialists would remain employed by Medical Specialists to serve the community hospital system?
No.
And after these meetings, did you ever discuss with Dr. Stemmer a decision of whether or not you would become an employee of Franciscan Alliance?
We had a couple of meetings, one with Dr. Stemmer and Dr. Ms. Barb Green, regarding coming on board.
And when you say coming on board, you mean coming on board with Franciscan?
Signing an assignment contract and working for Franciscan.
Okay. And was a document presented to you that would effectuate assignment of your employment agreement with Medical Specialists to Franciscan?
Yes.
Okay. By Dr. Stemmer?
There was one that was given to everyone at one of these town hall meetings.
Okay. How about afterwards, though, during these meetings with Dr. Stemmer and Barbara Green?
There was only one meeting.
One meeting?
And it was a preliminary meeting. Dr. Stemmer introduced me to Barbara Green. We talked about how we started the allergy practice. We talked about how I helped build it. And it was a short meeting and ended at that time.
Okay. Were you asked to make a decision at that time?
No.
Okay. Ultimately, you did make a decision that ultimately you made a decision on that subject, right?
Yes.
What was that decision?
Not to assign my contract to Franciscan.
Okay. Between the time of the town hall meeting which you discussed and the time you made your decision not to assign your contract, did anybody at your employer tell you that the option of remaining an employee of Medical Specialist Inc. PC to service patients or hospitals within the community health care system was available to you?
No, I think there was no option.
What options were presented to you by your employer?
Basically, you go with Franciscan or there's no medical practice at Medical Specialist.
Are you familiar generally with the description of medical director within a hospital system?
Generally, usually for allergy and immunology, there are no positions for medical directors.
Okay. Are there any positions for medical director of allergy and immunology at Community Hospital or any of the hospitals within that system that you're aware of?
Not that I know.
Are there any within Franciscan St. Margaret's, either North or South Campus that you're aware of?
Not that I know.
Are there any medical director positions for allergy and immunology at any of the hospitals at which you have privileges?
None.
Backing up a little bit, you decided not to assign your employment agreement to Franciscan.
Correct.
How did you communicate that to your employer?
I did not return the assignment contract.
Okay. Did you make a decision? Well, strike that. At some point, you're aware that the assets of Medical Specialists Inc. PC, some or all of them, were acquired by Franciscan Alliance.
Yes.
Okay. And after you learned that, did you notify Medical Specialists Inc. PC that you would not be renewing your employment contract?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
In writing.
Okay.
Certified.
And do you remember when you did that in writing?
That was sometime in December.
December of 2012?
Correct.
From 2005, when you started employment with Medical Specialists Inc. PC, until January of 2013, how many other physicians specializing in allergy and immunology were there at Medical Specialists?
I was the sole provider.
Okay. And then and by the way, where were your offices at again? Your primary offices during
one
that time?
was 761 45th Street in Munster, and the 80th place in Maryville was the one for half a day a week on Thursdays.
And as far as you know, between 2005 and January 2013, you were the only allergist and immunologist practicing at the 761 location?
Correct.
Did that change after January of 2013? Or let's say at the new year, January 2013?
Yes.
Okay, just tell the court how that changed, please.
They brought in another allergist, immunologist from a Franciscan hospital from Chicago side. His name was Dr. Rademacher, Dr. Dennis Rademacher. And they said he was going to take over my patients.
When you say they said, who said?
Dr. Stemmer.
When did Dr. Stemmer tell you that?
Had a meeting towards the last week of December with Dr. Stemmer and Jackie McLean, who is the office manager. And at that time, they also told me that my hours in Munster would be reduced by 50%, and I would need to go to Maryville, where I had a very small practice, barely filling up half a day a week.
And did that occur? Did you start spending more time in Maryville?
Yes.
And the practice there was much smaller?
Correct.
Did you start spending less time then at the Munster practice?
Yes.
Dr. Rademacher began treating the patients at the Munster practice that you formerly treated?
I was given no new consults, even if they were sent by previous referring physicians that wanted to refer to me. All new consults went to Dr. Rademacher.
Are you saying that you learned somehow that a physician had referred a patient to you, but that your employer decided to refer that patient to Dr. Rademacher?
Correct.
How did you learn that?
From the doctor.
The referring doctor?
Correct.
More than one?
Yes.
While you were employed with medical specialists, were you enrolled in his health care plan?
I was offered, but had to decline.
Well, my question is, were you enrolled from
For a medical specialist?
Right.
I was for a few years. In the beginning, I was under my wife's plan from 2005 to 2009, I believe. And then from 2009 to 2012 is when I was on the medical specialist plan.
Okay, were you notified sometime in 2012 that medical specialist was terminating your health insurance plan?
Yes.
You remember how you learned of that?
We received a piece of paper asking us to sign on to a health plan. It's at Franciscan Physician Network, I believe on it.
Make sure that there's a copy for council. Dr. Patel, I'm going to hand you something that I've marked as Exhibit 12. I'm going to ask you if you recognize this document or a couple of documents and tell me what they are.
One is a email from someone from Human Resources, Olivia Zdrowski.
Is that an email to you?
To me, along with Dr. Leos and Dr. Atassi.
Do you know who Olivia is?
She's someone who works in Human Resources.
Did she work in Human Resources at Medical Specialist?
This email says Human Resources Learning and Development Specialist, Franciscan Medical Specialist.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I wasn't even aware of her prior to this sale.
You never met her before receiving that email?
Correct.
Okay. But you did receive that email?
I did.
Okay, and can you just read it for the court?
Subject is continuation.
Well, strike that. Strike that. Go ahead and look through, I'll admit it before I do that. Go ahead and look through the other 2 pages behind it and tell me if you know what those are.
I think it's a follow-up with the email, and it's an enrollment or a change application to sign up for health insurance for an employer name that says Franciscan Physician Network Medical Specialist.
Okay. And did you receive that and review that document as well as the email?
Yes, but it said, I received it on January 8th, and that time I was panicking because I thought my health insurance expired on December 31st.
Okay.
This email was correct.
Okay. We'll move to admit Exhibit 12.
Objection.
Okay.
Admitted.
Now, just with respect to what the document says, can you go ahead and read the email to the court?
Subject is continuation of coverage. As you already know, our benefit plans have changed, and you no longer have health insurance through Ally. If you are interested in signing up for health, dental, vision, or FSA, please complete and return the attached forms back as soon as possible. This is a continuation of coverage that you can only be on for up to 1 year. You will notice that there are 4 different plan choices, summary plan descriptions all attached, but if you are looking to stick to a PPO and visit physicians outside of Franciscan Alliance, you will want to choose Indiana Open Access. Your payroll deduction, health/dental, will stay the same as in 2012. Please let me know if you have any questions. Olivia Zdrowski, HR/Learning and Development Specialist, Franciscan Medical Specialist, phone number, fax, a division of MedSpecIndiana.com, a division of Franciscan Alliance, Inspiring Health.
Okay. And then turning to the following pages, are those the forms that are attached or that were attached and were sent to you with the email?
I don't remember if it came together with the email or it came a little bit later.
Okay. The pages following the first page, though, those were provided to you by your employer, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who does it list on the second page your employer as?
Franciscan Physician Network Medical Specialist.
Okay. And did you disagree with that designation?
Yes, because I did not sign my contract.
Okay. Now, you're no longer employed with medical specialists, is that correct?
Correct.
Where are you? You're practicing medicine today, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and where are you practicing medicine?
1650 45th Street in Munster, Indiana.
What do you do at 1650 45th Street?
Practice my specialty, allergy, asthma, and immunology.
Do you treat patients at any other locations?
I work 1.5 days a week in Illinois.
Do you treat patients anywhere else in Indiana
No.
other than 1650 45th Street?
No.
Is your entire practice devoted to allergy and immunology?
Yes.
As part of your current practice, do you sometimes have to admit patients to hospital?
Occasionally.
Have you done so since June 30th of 2013?
No.
But as a physician specializing in allergy and immunology, you may have to do so in the future.
Yes, I have very sick patients, and when they become unstable, especially the immunodeficiency patients or patients with severe, difficult to control asthma, it may require hospitalization.
Prior to June 30th of 2013, when you had to admit a patient to hospital, what hospital did you, or hospitals did you admit the patients at?
Mostly community hospital,
Any other hospitals?
occasionally St. Margaret's North, St. Margaret's South, Francis.
Would it be disruptive to your practice if you weren't able to admit patients to those hospitals going forward from today?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, the patients that I treat live in that area, and if their health becomes unstable, they would need to be admitted to a hospital that they live nearby.
Dr. Patel, I'm going to hand you something that I've marked as Exhibit 13. Let's go off the record for a second. These pages are copied out of order. That's the order. Yep. Dr. Patel, I'm going to ask you if you recognize that document.
Yes, I do.
Okay, is it something that was presented to you along with materials describing the proposed transaction between Franciscan Alliance and Medical Specialists?
Yes, at one of those town hall meetings.
Okay. Were there any other documents that were presented to you along with this? If you recall?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Dr. Patel, I'd move to admit Exhibit 13.
So objection. 13 is admitted.
I'd like you to read, Dr. Patel, the second full paragraph under the subheading Summary of Benefits of Sale to FA.
First, FA has agreed that medical specialists will become the specialty arm of the FA Northern Indiana region. This means that all new specialists needed within the region's 3 counties will be recruited by and employed through Franciscan medical specialists. This commitment assures that our vision of becoming the university quality medical destination in Northwest Indiana is dramatically enhanced, expanded, and accelerated with this association. Individually, this responsibility affords each of our physicians the best opportunity for practice, growth, and improvement.
Okay. And can you just read through the document very quickly, Dr. Patel, and tell me if anywhere in there it describes medical specialists, Inc. PC employees, remaining employees to treat patients within the community healthcare system after the sale?
I do not see one.
Okay. Was the option of remaining a medical specialist, Inc. PC employee to treat patients or serve needs within the community healthcare system ever presented to you?
No.
And did you rely on the materials that were presented to you by medical specialists and Franciscan in describing the sale and making your decision as to whether or not you would assign your employment agreement to Franciscan Alliance?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Your practice is office-based rather than hospital-based, isn't that correct?
Correct.
You haven't admitted patients to any hospital, Franciscan affiliated or non-Franciscan affiliated, since June 30th, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Now, the office that you have currently, what's that called?
Pulmonology and Allergy Associates.
And where is the office located?
1650 45th Street, Munster.
And is that less than 10 miles from 761 45th?
Yes.
Now, you insisted, did you not, that up until the termination date of your contract, you were going to remain an employee of medical specialists, isn't that correct?
Did not insist.
Did you hear your lawyer talk yesterday, about remaining an employee of medical specialists as opposed to Franciscan medical specialists?
I had an active contract with medical specialists.
And you expected them to continue to employ you and you continue to work for them?
Yes.
Does your medical specialist contract include a covenant by the terms of which you promise not to practice at a location within 10 miles of any medical specialist's location?
Yes.
Does your contract with medical specialists include a provision that requires you to resign hospital affiliations when you leave medical specialist employment?
Yes.
Does your contract with medical specialists prohibit you from soliciting its patients to start a new practice?
Which patients?
Patients that you're seeing at 761 45th or at any time prior to your beginning your practice with Pulmonary and Allergy Associates?
According to the information we obtained about the sale, those patients were no longer medical specialist patients.
Well, you continued to render services to those patients as a medical specialist employee, didn't you?
As an employee, but they were not medical specialist patients.
So you thought that it was all right if you solicited any patient who you had taken care of prior to the time you started to work for Pulmonary and Allergy Associates. Is that correct?
I'm going to object that the question calls for a legal conclusion with respect to what constitutes solicitation.
Let me make it simpler for you. I'll rephrase it. Did you believe that you were entitled to make a list of your patients and call those patients after you left and began your association with Pulmonary and Allergy Associates?
I believe I had a duty to my patients that I treated for many, many years to make sure they will have the continuity of care that they deserve and that they need.
Well, you gave notice of your employment to medical specialists in the fall, didn't you, of 2012?
No, can you repeat that?
You gave notice of your intent to terminate your employment with medical specialists in the fall of 2012.
No.
When did you give them notice of your intent to terminate?
December.
All right. So you told them in December that you would be leaving no later than June 30th. Is that correct?
Yes.
And after you gave them notice of your intent to terminate, you were then introduced to Dr. Rademacher. Is that correct?
I had talked to Dr. Rademacher prior to that.
Well, you were advised that Dr. Rademacher was being brought on board to render allergy and immunology services. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And you knew that Dr. Rademacher was going to be available at 761 45th in Munster to render those services, didn't you?
Dr. Rademacher came from a Franciscan hospital. He transferred his practice from the Franciscan hospital in Illinois. And he brought his patients over to Munster, and he was going to continue to treat Franciscan patients.
Well, you also know he was available to render care to to allergy and immunology patients at 761 45th, didn't you?
He was seeing patients there.
And one of the reasons he was brought there was to provide to provide allergy and immunology care after your departure.
It was unclear.
Well, you were introduced to him as an allergist and immunologist, weren't you?
He was moving his practice from Franciscan, Illinois side, the WellPoint group, to Indiana.
And he was available to render the same type or kind of services that you rendered, isn't that correct?
Yes,
So there was someone at that location to provide care and treatment to allergy and immunology patients, isn't that correct?
to any allergy and immunology patient, yes.
And in fact, you were moved from 761 45th to a location in Maryville once Dr. Rademacher became actively involved, isn't that correct?
As a non-consenting physician, I think I was treated like a non-consenting physician and moved to Maryville.
Moved to strike. That's not responsive to my question. Can you read the question back, please? To a location in Maryville once Dr. Rademacher became actively involved, isn't that correct?
I don't know if that's the full question. Can we?
Want to go back further?
Back further forward.
Yes.
And in fact, you were moved from 761 45th to a location in Maryville once Dr. Rademacher became actively involved, isn't that correct? That's the question.
Yes.
Now, before your departure, you prepared a handwritten list of some patients that you were caring for. Is that correct?
Correct.
Let me show you what's previously been marked for identification as Exhibit U. Would you take a look at that?
Yes.
And is that a list that you prepared?
The list of my patients.
We'll offer Exhibit U.
No objection.
Now, Exhibit U contains the names of various patients, does it not?
Yes.
And where did you get those names?
These are my allergy shot patients.
And did you have to look at any records to make sure that you got the name and the telephone number?
Yes.
What records did you look at?
We have our allergy shot charts
Allergy shot charts kept where?
in our allergy clinic.
And is the allergy clinic at 761 45th?
Yes.
And then you have a series of notations under a column on the right-hand side of the page. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that continues on throughout the entire document. Do you see that?
Yes.
And are those notations with regard to the type or kind of allergens that you were utilizing for the purpose of treating those patients?
It's a notation of what I am prescribing to those patients.
And for instance, let's just not name anybody, but let's look here at the third patient who's listed on the page. You've got an A, and then you've got a dash. What does the A tell us?
It's a vial A.
Okay, and what does a vial A contain?
Well, according to this patient's vial as trees, weeds, ragweed, and cat.
And then there's another listing, and it says B. You see that?
Yes.
And what is B?
Dust mites and mites.
So is that an indication of what the diagnosis of the type or kind of allergy is?
That is a notation of what I diagnosed for that patient based on his history, based on my physical exam of that patient, based on my skin test results, and based on my clinical judgment.
And then does that also give you an indication of how you would treat the patient?
It is what it's the substances that are in that vial.
And so those vials are used or administered to the patient in order to effectively treat the allergies that you've identified.
This is called desensitization, allergen immunotherapy, where you are giving highly allergenic and highly dangerous substances to patients in a very controlled environment so that their allergies and asthma get better without causing a severe allergic reaction.
So those notations allow you to determine what the type or kind of allergy is and the type or kind of therapy that is appropriate for that allergy.
I'm not sure what you mean by appropriate.
Effective treatment.
That is my prescription for that patient.
And where was that information gleaned from?
That was in the patient's allergy chart.
Maintained at 761 45th.
Yes.
Now, I think you told us earlier that you went to...
Excuse me, can we get the blackboard out in front of Mr. Patel, Dr. Patel, so we can see what you're writing?
I think you told us earlier that you went to a location on 80th and Maryville, is that right? Yes, sometime in 2013. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Did you return to 761 45th during that period of time?
I was practicing at both locations.
So you were at 80th for how many days a week?
I was supposed to be scheduled for 3 days a week, but there were no patients scheduled for me at all 2 of the days.
How many days were you at 761 45th?
2 days.
Now, when you came to 761 45th for those 2 days in 2013, did you take information that is embodied in Exhibit U from their records?
I spoke to my patients. My patients were scared, and my patients were very concerned about the transition of the new company. They were asking me, am I working for Franciscan medical specialist, because that's the sign now they were seeing. That's what they were hearing when they called the phone number, and those are the questions that they were asking. And my patient-doctor relationship became very, very awkward.
That wasn't my question. Maybe I should make it a little clearer for you. When you came to 761 45th, did you go to patients' charts and take their names, take their telephone numbers, and take the information which is embodied on the right side of Exhibit U?
They transferred that information, my prescription, and the patient's information at their request.
Over how long a period of time?
Well, the discussions were going on shortly after January 1st because there was lots of uncertainty. The patients were afraid what is going on. I try to allay their fears to say, at this point, I think I'm still here. I'm not sure what's going to happen. We had a court case going on at the same time. And I just noted the patients that were concerned about their treatment and wanted to follow me.
Did you tell anybody from medical specialists that you were taking this information and committing it to a piece of paper?
No.
Now, after you began your new practice, did you begin making telephone calls to patients?
Yes.
And did you use the information on Exhibit U to assist you in identifying people who you were going to call?
Yes.
And you heard Mrs. Cantania yesterday talk about the fact that you made 2 phone calls to the Cantania home. There's no reason to dispute that, is there?
No, I wanted to make sure that I would be, if they needed treatment from me, that I would be able to continue it for them. I was concerned about that.
Now, let's look at Defendant's Exhibit J, which is your employment contract, Dr. Patel. I place that in front. Can you take a quick look at that one? Is that your employment contract?
Yes.
And that's your employment contract with medical specialists, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, if you can turn, please, to the Exhibit F. Take a look at that and look at it silently to yourself. Okay, Exhibit F is your shareholder or unit holder status, is it not? Isn't that what it's entitled?
Yes.
Okay. And are you a unit holder in FCCI?
I'm not sure.
Well, do you own Class B units in FCCI?
I've been told I have. I don't have any paperwork that says I do.
Okay. The document provides that in the event that you are terminated on or after June 1st, 2011, upon such termination, you can sell to the corporation all the units issued to you at a rate not to exceed 1/5 of such units per year, and the corporation is to pay the fair market value for those units. Do you see that language in the document, sir?
We'll stipulate that it says what it says.
Do you expect the corporation, medical specialists, to honor that agreement? Well, do you expect them to pay you for the units, the Class B units in FCCI?
I thought medical specialist was sold.
Well,
So I didn't-
what does that document tell you?
I don't know what it says.
Well, if you have a right to receive payment for units as a Class B unit holder in FCCI, don't you agree with me that you want to be paid for those units?
I do, yes.
Thank you. Now, let's look at paragraph 5.3, confidentiality. Why don't you read that silently to yourself? Is there a sentence in Article 5, paragraph 5.3 that says, quote, upon termination of this agreement, physician shall promptly deliver to corporation all files, patient lists and information, memoranda, plans, records, or written materials of any kind relating to the business and affairs of the corporation, which are in the physician's possession or under the physician's control. Have I read that accurately?
You read it accurately.
Did you deliver Exhibit U, the list you made, to the corporation upon your departure?
These were my notes for my patients. I did not.
What does it provide? You're supposed to deliver all patient lists. Isn't that what it says?
Which patients?
All patient lists.
Yes.
Did you deliver Exhibit U upon your departure?
No, I did not.
Now, you said that you have another office or work someplace other than 1650 45th. Where is that, sir?
It's in the western suburbs.
Is there a particular western suburb?
Darien, Illinois.
And do you do business under a name or style at that location in Darien, Illinois?
Don't do business. I'm just an employee.
You're employed by someone else?
Correct.
And by whom are you employed?
Oak Brook Allergies.
And how long have you been employed by Oak Brook Allergists?
Starting in July.
July of 2013.
Correct.
And Darien, Illinois is more than 3 miles away from any of the medical specialist locations in the state of Indiana.
Yes.
And you're there a day and a half?
Yes.
Now, when you became employed by medical specialists in 2005, you knew that this was the opportunity to establish an allergy and immunology practice on their behalf. Isn't that correct?
It was an opportunity to grow a division for medical specialists. Correct.
And it started pretty slowly, didn't it?
For a new practice, it took a little bit of time.
And in fact, you were able to secure an agreement that allowed you to go and work in Illinois during that period of time, didn't you?
For a short period of time.
And is that because things were kind of slow?
There was no work there. Correct.
Now, did you move from offices at 761 45th into an area that was more closely associated with the pulmonologists?
Yes.
And was there a build-out of that suite in order to accommodate you?
Not specific for me, but there was a remodeling for the whole pulmonology office.
And you would be able to get pulmonology patients who had problems that might be related to allergy. Isn't that correct?
The pulmonologist did refer internally.
So you got referrals internally from medical specialist physicians with regard to your allergy practice. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And I think you told us earlier that when you started and were trying to become involved in building up this practice, medical specialists supported you with regard to advertising and announcements and the like. Isn't that correct, sir?
Yes.
Have you entered into any agreement with Oak Brook allergists?
Yes.
Have you entered into a written agreement?
Yes.
And for how long a period of time is that agreement in effect?
1 year.
And does that provide you with a salary?
No.
You have a right to make use of their facilities and see patients?
I am just part-time at the location, seeing the patients.
And then do you bill for those patients yourself, or do they bill for you and provide you with a percentage?
They bill.
They bill and then give you a percentage?
There's no percentage. I work for an hourly fee.
That's awesome.
It's about 9 minutes to 12. I don't know how long this is going to go back and forth, but
We'll break for lunch and reconvene at 1 o'clock.
thank you.